welcome to Expanding Consciousness with myself, your host, Anjula Ram. And I am very, very honored to be here today with Susan Shumsky. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm
Absolutely.
really happy to be here, Anjula.
Thank you. It's great to have you. And Susan Shumsky is a very renowned spiritual teacher and author. And tell me a little bit about what was your transition into this line of work?
Well, I've been practicing spiritual disciplines for over 47 years. And I was a hippie. It was the 1960s. And I was a flower child in the San Francisco Bay Area. And probably you don't realize, but those of us who were flower children, we were really, really very serious about spiritual enlightenment and wisdom of the East, basically. So I was studying the Buddhist scriptures. I was studying Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. I was studying Alan Watts, The Way of Zen. And I noticed that in Alan Watts' books, that he said that you need to find a meditation guide. Well, in 1966 in Berkeley, California, trust me, you did not look up in the yellow pages for a meditation guide. But what I did is I asked a roommate, I said, well, I need to find a meditation guide. How would I do that? And he said, well, have you ever tried to meditate on your own? I said, well, I'll give it a shot. Why not? So I had no idea what I was doing, Anjula. So I lay down on my bed and I sort of prayed for or asked for a meditation. Immediately I was propelled into this ecstatic state. I felt this rush of energy rushing from the tips of my toes all the way to the top of my head. I felt like I was plugged into an electric socket, but in a very good way. And it felt really incredible. And so I figured, well, I guess this is meditation. What did I know? And little did I know that I had just had my first meditation and also my complete Kundalini awakening all at the same time. Wow. So that's what got me into the whole spiritual path. And then it wasn't very long after that I joined the ashram, which is the place you go to study with a spiritual master from India, with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. He was the guru of the Beatles and the guru of Deepak Chopra. So I was with him for 22 years, and I was on his personal staff for 7 of those years. Now, I didn't even start to be an author until after I had already left the ashram. I started writing books in 1990, very late in my life. But I already have 11 books in print.
Wow, yeah, it's pretty amazing. And you do cover a wide area. You do actually do the connecting with divine source that transcends all duality. This is my understanding. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But then you also are mindful of the fact that we are in this dimension and there are all these other realities and dimensions going on.
Well, there's 4 basic planes of existence. There's the spiritual world, the mental world, the astral world, and the environmental world. And if you're going to receive, for example, intuitive guidance, if you're going to tap into messages from other dimensions, you're going to be receiving those messages from one of those 4 places. And I recommend very strongly that you only receive your messages from the divine realm, whereas many people are just opening up to anything and everything to speak to them and give them advice, messages. I mean, is that, I don't understand why they would do that.
It just sounds funny. It's like going into the street or in a marketplace and saying, I need advice, and actually taking it on. You don't know what you're getting.
That's right. So I believe spiritual discernment is very, very important. And I believe that if we're going to receive guidance, that we want to receive it from the highest source. And that would be from deity, from angels, archangels, divine beings, ascended masters, even from our loved ones that have passed over into the light, who have gone on into the divine light. So those are the safe places to receive messages from. If you're tapping into other realms, or if you're inadvertently tapping into other realms because you don't know what you're doing, then you're going to be misguided, misled, and believe me, it can actually ruin your life. So it's really not something to play with. I recommend that if people are going to develop themselves intuitively or become a psychic or whatever, that they really, really study with someone who knows what they're doing, first of all, and that they be very mindful of what level they're in contact with. It just makes sense. if we just open ourselves indiscriminately to everything and anything giving us a message, it's like inviting a stranger into your home to take over your home. We would never do that. Yet, when we go into the inner worlds, we do it without compunction. I'm just going to open myself up.
Yeah, it's very true. So in your perspective, it is possible to open yourself to certain dimensions and not other dimensions?
Yes,
is that
absolutely.
correct? Okay, and maybe we could do this as we go along with what the topics that we discussed. So would you mind sharing an affirmation or something, one of your powerful commanding voices with our audience? So if you are wanting to do spiritual work and tap in for guidance and so on, this would be a really good affirmation to use. What would that be?
Okay, so I would say that before you begin to receive inner guidance or divine guidance or intuitive messages, that you connect with spirit. And here's one way you can do it through an affirmation like this. The light of God surrounds me. The love of God enfolds me. The power of God protects me. The presence of God watches over me. Wherever I am, God is, and all is well. And Anjula, that kind of affirmation just helps us to get into a more sacred space, shall we say. But of course, I think meditation is very important too, not just affirmation. To be in a deep state of meditation where you are quiet and still and in a centered space, in a very loving space, in a space where you're experiencing oneness and wholeness before you try to receive intuitive guidance.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about practice and meditation then.
Well, if we want to have a balanced life, I think it's important to have meditation, affirmation, spiritual healing prayers, and prayers of manifestation, prayers to manifest things that we want in our lives, and dynamic activity during the day as well. So that would be a balanced whole life, is to have all these practices going on. Now, with regards to meditation, it's really very simple. All you need to do is to just sit down in a chair, you close your eyes, you take a few deep breaths and get quiet and still, and then you take some more deep breaths and you get even more quiet and still. Take more deep breaths. And as you're doing this, between your deep breaths, I suggest calling upon a divine being that you like, calling upon a deity, calling upon whatever it is that you want to be in contact with. And ask. It's very important to ask. And as you're going deep within, you just get even more and more quiet, take more deep breaths. And really, the basic premise of what I teach is ask and it shall be given unto you. And most people, when they go into meditation, they have an unfocused, they are not even asking for anything specific. It's a good idea to ask, if you want divine love, let's say you want to be fed with divine love from spirit with a capital S, then you ask for divine love. You say, spirit, and it's a good idea to even call upon a deity by name if you'd like to. Or you could just say, spirit, feed me divine love, for example. Please feed me divine love. And then you will be fed with divine love. Ask and it shall be given unto you. It's so very simple. It's just ask and receive. Ask and receive. And you can also do that to ask questions and receive divine guidance. Specific questions. Now, when you're asking questions, it's very important that you don't ask fortune-telling questions because that will lower the vibration. Very, very important that you ask for advice. What is highest wisdom for me to do in this situation? What is highest wisdom for me to do about this problem I'm having with my child? What is wise for me to do about the problem I'm having with my boss at work? These types of questions are good questions because you'll receive advice from spirit. But when you ask something like, will I get married? Will I marry Bill? That is...
How do you know I want to marry Bill?
That is disempowering because it precludes the idea that it assumes the idea that you have no free will.
Yeah.
When you're asking about the future and asking fortune telling, you're assuming that you have no power in your life. And in fact, we're creating everything in our life moment by moment with every thought, every word, and every deed. We're creating our own life. So when you're asking fortune-telling questions, you're just saying, oh, well, I'm not in charge of my life, so let me just see what's going to happen to me. The reality is nothing ever happens to you. You only happen to yourself. So back to meditation. So we're getting quiet, we're getting still, we're taking deep breaths, we're getting even more quiet and more still. And then we might ask a question, and then after you ask your question, you take another big deep breath, and then you do what I call the do nothing program, which means you do nothing, nothing, and less than nothing. And that is during the meditative state. You just do nothing. And the more neutral that you are, without expecting, without seeking, without grasping, just being neutral and receiving, you'll receive the message, you'll receive the guidance. And the guidance will often come to you in one of three ways, either seeing a vision, or hearing some words, or getting a feeling. Those are the three basic ways that Spirit communicates with us. So that's how to receive communication. If we want to just have a deep experience of, for example, divine love, as I mentioned, or divine light, or unbounded awareness, then simply ask for that. Just say, Spirit, give me the experience of unbounded awareness. Spirit, please give me the experience of divine light streaming into my being, and you will receive it.
Yeah, and it's very true, just through experience. I know there's been times where I'm kind of like, oh, it's meditation time, and I'll go sit down, and I'm like, get in that space, and then my mind's just kind of doing what it was doing earlier. And
that's right, you're thinking about making lunch.
Yeah, and I'm just becoming more aware of it, and then like a little frustration will kick in. But then it's funny because when I stop, because I do believe in prayer a lot, and I'll be like, okay, God, please help me to calm this down and get perspective, and you know, like I just want to be able to just be neutral. And then it will happen. So it's funny because it's like, it's almost so easy to forget to ask. That it is what people are asking gets confusing. So I learned quite a while ago, okay, there's a time and place if you want to do manifesting work or shadow work or do this or that work, but meditation work is just to tap into that divine source.
It is. Meditation's about receiving.
That's
receiving and experiencing the divine presence. Prayer is about creating things in your life, or doing healing, changing conditions in your life. That's done through prayer and affirmation in my book. That's the way it
I'm
works.
really grateful and glad that you actually made that distinction, because I've never separated it so clearly.
There it is.
And it resonates and it makes sense. So there's meditation and connecting with divine, and then the way to work manifestation is through prayer. It's like communication, it's two-way. So if we're using prayer and affirmation to speak to, like, when are we going to hear the answer if we don't meditate, right?
That's very true.
Because the monkey mind is like, would love to be on all the time, so it's kind of like, when do we hear it? So I think that actually the two need to go hand in hand and balance.
And there's something else, Anjula, and that is that before we try to manifest anything, before we try to create something in our life or change a condition, it's very important that we find out what to pray for in the first place, that we listen to the still small voice within us and find out what is our true purpose, what's our mission, what's the plan, what's highest wisdom for us to pray for in this lifetime. And when we start to receive answers about what's highest wisdom for us to do, then we know that it's highest wisdom for us to pray for those things. We know what to pray for. It just makes life a whole lot easier when you follow inner divine guidance.
Absolutely.
When you listen to that inner voice, then you are led by Spirit, and then your life becomes quite miraculous. You're living in the flow of divine guidance. You're living according to the laws of nature. You're receiving coincidences that aren't really coincidental. People are just showing up in your life automatically. You're in the right place, doing the right thing, the right things happen. And it makes life like magical and mystical and mysterious and miraculous. Yeah. So I really recommend following divine guidance. Now, when you follow divine guidance, you'll be given little assignments by Spirit with a capital S. And then you'll know, oh, it's time for me to pray for this because that's what Spirit wants me to manifest in my life. Now, who is Spirit? Well, Spirit is actually you. It's actually your higher self. It's the true nature of your being. So it isn't like you're contacting something external or some deity up there in a cloud or anything like that. What you're contacting is your own inner divinity, the part of your being that knows what is highest wisdom for you and that has your best interest in mind, because that's according to your true divine plan, why you came here, why you incarnated in the first place. It's a good idea for people to begin to ask about what that is and receive answers and receive guidance. Now, when you receive the guidance, it's really important that you actually pay attention to it and follow it, and not just discard it, disown it, just think, oh, that can't be real, that can't be true. 9 times out of 10, it is true, it is real. So trust it, and then have the courage to follow it. Because it's not easy, by the way, to follow your inner guidance. It's really not easy, because Spirit will give you assignments that are not really in your comfort zone.
Yeah.
They'll try to help you to break out of that little envelope you've been living in.
Oh, I know. It's so true. It's so true. And it makes sense when you kind of look back at it and you kind of see where you come to. But at the time, you're like, why? I don't understand. Is there no other route to get there? Like, can we do something else? But you know, Susan, honestly, I wish I had met you and your work years ago, because I did go through the phase where I learned about manifestation, and I was like, oh, I'm so powerful, you know, and I definitely manifested a couple of things in my life.
You can. Anything.
And I'll tell you, I was just kind of like, oh crap, afterwards, because it was not what I had kind of like figured it would be.
Right.
And then I don't remember whose book it was that I was reading, but I was reading something a couple of years later, and it said about meditation. And connecting to divine source, and then creating from that space. It actually took me a while to understand, and then I think there's this feeling of what it was in my experience, where you kind of think, I'm not going to manifest anything, I'm just going to just let God do everything, because I don't want to do this manifesting stuff, I'm just going to hand it all over, you know. And it is more recently that I actually really learned that it is a balancing act. It's like really sitting with divine, really hearing clearly, and then working on manifesting that. So there's almost a way where you can go to one extreme or to another.
Right.
And there is a beauty in balancing
There's a balance,
it.
yeah. And I think many people are praying backwards. Praying backwards would be making your laundry list. These are the things I want. My Mercedes-Benz, my house on the hill, my 2.3 children. Oh, my husband, I need that. And, you know, then you get all those things and, oh, really? Gee whiz. And maybe it doesn't work out as you had expected. And praying forwards, praying according to Spirit, would be first find out what's highest wisdom to pray for, then manifest those things in your life. You already have, and if you've already mastered the art of manifestation, why not use it with the proper things that you really want to welcome into your life? Then you'll have a wonderful life. It will be easy, effortless, and joyous.
I like it. Now, I do know you did release 2 books fairly recently. One was on chakras and one was on auras. So could you speak a little bit about the chakra aura system in our body? And
Okay. So I have a book called The Power of Auras, and another book called The Power of Chakras. And the book on auras is about the subtle energy field. And we do have not only this gross physical body, but we have a whole subtle energy system which permeates, pervades, and surrounds this physical body, which is invisible to the human eye, but it is visible to clairvoyant sight. There are clairvoyants, clairaudience, clairsentients who can sense or see the subtle bodies that are surrounding and permeating the physical form. Now there's 5 basic bodies. They're called the Fivefold Sheath, or the koshas. Okay, that's the term in Sanskrit is kosha. So we have the Annamaya kosha, which is your physical body. That would be the food sheath. The reason it's called the food sheath is because it's created by food, maintained by food, and it becomes food for something else after you're gone. So that's the food sheath. It's temporary, and we're living in this physical form. And then there's one subtle body called the Pranamaya kosha, which is made of prana. Prana is subtle life force energy. It's also called chi in China. It's called ki in Japan. So this subtle energy sheath called the pranic body or the energy body, which gives you life. It actually animates you and gives you life. The physical body has no life inherent in it whatsoever. If a physical body were walking around without a subtle body, it wouldn't be walking around because it would be dead. So it's said in the ancient scriptures of India that when prana is in the body, this life force energy, prana, when that's in the body, that is defined as life. When prana leaves the body, that is defined as death. So prana is what keeps you alive and makes you alive. So that is flowing through your that subtle body, that particular sheath, flowing through conduits of energy called nadi, N-A-D-I, and where the nadi intersect with each other, those are called chakra. Chakra means wheel. It's like a hub. It has a hub, it has spokes, which are radiations of energy, and there's a hub where all these nadi are intersecting. So these specific centers of subtle energy are there. They're called chakra. So that's all in your pranic body, or pranamaya kosha. Then you have a mental body that's called manomaya kosha, and that's where your senses are, your ability to perceive through the senses, your ability to have sensory experiences. Also, that's your emotional body as well, that manomaya kosha. It's very interesting that when a person has a near-death experience, they leave their body, and guess what? They can see, hear, taste, touch, smell. Well, how can they
take that body with them?
How can they? It's because they're not they're looking at their physical body, which is like lying on an operating table or on the ground or wherever it fell or so, but they're still able to have their senses operating. How is that? It's because your senses are in that subtle body called the manomaya kosha, or mental body. Then there's another subtle body. It's called the vijnanamaya kosha, and that's your intellect and ego body. And that is where your ego is lodged. The ego is defined as who you think you are. It's not who you really are, because who you really are is called Atman. That's your higher self. Your ego is who you imagine yourself to be. Okay, so that's lodged there, and your intellect is there. Your intellect is your way that you decide, that you discern, that you make choices in life, that sort of thing. Then there's another body called the Anandamaya kosha, and that is your causal body, and that is the fifth subtle body, and the causal body is the body by which you individuate, by which you become a separate being from everything else. So those are the 5 koshas, or subtle sheaths, of your, that's your entire energy system consists of those 5 sheaths.
Thank you, that was an excellent summary. I'm going to rewind it and watch it for sure. And then what about the chakra systems? Could you speak a little bit more about that? Because I think I heard is that there isn't just 7. There's meant to be 2 more in the head somewhere, or maybe another one down here, and then there's a bunch of other. So you're going to probably tell it more correctly than I will. But if you could just speak a little bit about chakras.
Okay. First of all, the word is pronounced chakra. Chakra is a Sanskrit word. It is, as I said, a hub of subtle energy, and there's hundreds of chakras in your subtle body. Actually, every acupuncture point is a chakra, but there are 7 major ones that are talked about. The 7 major ones are the base chakra, the sacral chakra, the navel chakra, the heart chakra, the throat chakra, the third eye chakra, and the crown chakra. Those are the major ones. But then there are 7 other ones. Now, when I was asked to write the book, The Power of Chakras, by my publisher, I had no interest in writing about chakras, by the way. Absolutely zero interest. But I've become very interested in it once I started doing the research and learned more about it and everything. So what I did is I went back to the ancient scriptures of India, right back to the ancient scriptures, to find the most authentic information I could find about the subject of chakras, because I always try to go to the source. So I found these ancient Vedic and Tantric scriptures, and especially the Tantric scriptures really talk a lot about chakras. And I found that they talk about 14 chakras. the 7 major ones that we just discussed, and then there's one other that's right below the heart chakra. It's called Hrit chakra, H-R-I-T, which is the place where the deity resides, our devotion to God, and so forth. And then there's 6 other ones that are in the head, in the area of the head. And in fact, most of those chakras are associated with some of those subtle bodies that I mentioned earlier. So there's 14 total chakras that I discuss in my book, The Power of Chakras. And many of the teachers and authors who write about chakras use my book as a reference. People like Anna D. and Judith, Cindy Dale, they've told me that I'm the reference book, that they refer to. And they also send their students to my book, those who are really serious about studying the subject from an authentic level, which includes the mysteries of the mantra, the system of mantras, and all of the Sanskrit alphabet. And there's so many things that are tied up with the chakras, the manifestation of the universe. I mean, this book is so far out. It goes into how the universe gets manifested in the beginning of creation, and how it goes back to a singularity at the end of creation, and how this energy system parallels that, as above, so below. It's a very far out book.
Fascinating, yeah. I think it
really,
sounds like a bit of a must-read, actually.
It is, definitely.
Excellent. So I know we're closing, going to have to close up soon, but I was hoping that you would share a few more, let's maybe say more commonly used, or, if you had to recommend like 2 or 3 or 4 affirmations, prayers, stuff for when, even just generally, like, if there's somebody who's doing absolutely no practice, spiritual practice at all, but it's like, okay, I can muster up the strength to do a couple of affirmations in the morning before I leave for my day.
Yes.
What would you recommend them to try out? So
I have an affirmation which is called the self-authority affirmation, which helps you to have greater integrity, inner strength, to be able to withstand any kind of, shall we say, challenges that come into your life. And also, it helps you to not be a psychic sponge. A psychic sponge is a person who's overly sensitive, who's so sensitive that they are taking on energy from other people. In fact, they're like sponges that are absorbing water, and that water is all the energies of everybody around them. In other words, that's what I mean by psychic sponge. You're absorbing the energies just like a sponge absorbs water. So when you're a psychic sponge, you get really drained all day. And you feel like everybody around you is a psychic vampire, just sucking your energy dry all day long. At the end of the day, all you can do is just lie in your bed and, I'm so exhausted, you can't do anything. So that would be a psychic sponge. Now, you don't have to be a psychic sponge to use this affirmation, but if you have any tendency to not maintain real strong integrity in your life throughout all the challenges, then and that would probably be, the 6 billion people on the earth. So then I suggest you use this affirmation, which really works. It's called the self-authority affirmation. Now, when you say this affirmation, I recommend that you say it as if your higher self was saying it through you. In other words, just pretend as though, and that's true with every affirmation. That's the reason why, as you mentioned, that my affirmations seem to have so much authority. It's because my higher self is speaking through the affirmation, through me. So I suggest that people just pretend as though your higher self is saying it through you, and you'll have better results with your affirmations. So it goes like this, okay? I am in control. I am one with God. I am the only authority in my life. I am divinely protected by the light of my being. I close off my aura and body of light to the lower astral levels of mind, and I open to the spiritual world. Thank you, God, and so it is.
Thank you.
I might suggest that people cut psychic ties. I think that's very, very important.
That's a good idea, yes.
Very important. That we cut psychic ties daily with the people that we are working with, and people people at home, people, our loved ones, and people that we're intimate with in various situations, like at work, at home. And if we cut psychic ties daily with those people, we're going to have more intimate relationships, better relationships, closer relationships. So what we're cutting when we cut the psychic ties is we're cutting the negative energies that have built up, like tension, stress between people. For example, if we've had an argument with someone, the residue is a psychic tie. It's a karmic bond or psychic tie that creates a negative vibration. It just makes us resent or feel bad or feel guilty, feel shame. All these emotions are kind of tied up with these psychic ties. So it's really important that we cut the psychic ties daily so that we don't build up these negative emotions.
That sounds like a good idea. Let's have the...
All right, so here it goes. I now call upon the Holy Spirit to cut and end all psychic ties and karmic bonds between myself and fill in the blank. You say whoever it is that you're... Don't say fill in the blank. Say the name of it's either a person, place, thing, organization, situation, circumstance, memory, or addiction that has been negatively influencing you. So just say that thing, whatever it is, that person or whatever it is. These psychic ties are all now lovingly cut, 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 cut. Lifted, loved, healed, blessed, released, dissolved, and let go into the light of God's love and truth. Thank you, God, and so it is.
I like that one a lot.
It works.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's pretty brilliant. And with this psychic tie cutting, I've done a little bit of stuff with that before in the past, and I remember feeling very much like, ooh, do I really want to let this go? Or maybe it'll turn out. Maybe I don't need to let it go. And I just really appreciate you clarifying that it's just cutting the tie of the lower vibration, the negative side of it.
The psychic ties are in the astral mental world. The love ties, or true love bonds, are in the spiritual world. Even if you tried to cut the true love bonds, you couldn't cut them. Anyway, those are the golden ties of love. The psychic ties are the negative vibration that's binding you, that's causing you anxiety, that's causing you pain, that's causing your heart to break. All of that is due to psychic ties. So when we cut the psychic ties, we have better relationships. It's just the way it works. So I recommend that people read my book, Instant Healing, which has 243 affirmative prayers in it. Instant Healing, 243 affirmative prayers for manifestation, for healing. If you look in the appendix, it'll tell you all the different topics, and then you just pick out, addiction, or whatever it happens to be that you need help with. You go to that page, you read the prayer. It's instant results. It actually really works. Instant healing.
Fabulous. Okay, so where can our audience find out more information about you, your work, your schedule, services you offer, definitely your books, gazillions of books?
Right. I have 11 books in print. My latest book is called Awaken Your Third Eye. And that's the one where you learn how to open to that spiritual awareness. The third eye is not only the eye of clairvoyance, clairaudience, and clairsentience, it's also the eye of illumination, which is the center of spiritual enlightenment and spiritual wisdom. So the third eye is very, very important and very powerful. And that's my new book, Awaken Your Third Eye. And as I said, I have 11 books in print. I have a website called drsusan.org. That's drsusan.org.
And we'll have all of this information at the bottom of the screen as well in text.
And then I have another website, which is called divinetravels.com. That's DIVINETRAVELS.com. And that's where people can find out about tours, retreats, cruise ship seminars, tours to sacred destinations, all kinds of amazing opportunities for spiritual growth, and at the same time having a wonderful vacation. So that's fun.
Excellent. So those two websites are your main websites?
Those are the main websites, right.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Susan. I really, really appreciate you taking this time out to sit in dialogue with me. And, hopefully our audience benefits from it. And like I said at the opening, I there's a lot of people I just like to sit and speak with, just because intuitively I feel like, oh, well, you should interview a dialogue with them. And for you, it's definitely one person that I've actually experienced doing a little bit of work with, even though it was just a workshop for a couple of hours. And I was like, this lady knows what she's doing. So
thank you. I've been doing it a long time. Very long time.
I truly appreciate it. Thank you very much. And thank you for watching. You've been watching Expand Consciousness with your host, myself, Anjula Ram. And I will see you next time. Thank you.